for it, as always. Regenerative farming was something that I'd heard about, but I actually honestly, I thought it was something that was really only applicable for climates like kind of brittle climates where there was constant drought and stuff like that. But then I started to observe like my own farm and the compaction and all that sort of stuff, and I started to think, hold on, just because I'm organic farming doesn't mean I'm actually doing good here for my land. So don't get me wrong, I'm still an organic farmer, but I feel like I needed to go beyond that. We sowed a crop of winter oats in this field, and it was in October in 2023, and I went off on holidays and we had this massive rain event, and I just had this feeling that there was going to be something bad in here when I came back. And I came back and there was tracks going the whole way down the field, all that gap and out that gap, and the whole winter I watched brown water come out the gap onto the road from every time it rained, and it was just awful. So that was right, that was kind of, I needed to change what I was doing. So we put this back into grass, but just going to dig up it. I can barely get the spade in. See the root? It's gone like that. That should be going down, you know? My name's Fintan White. I'm farming here with my family in Skehana Hill in a place called Ballylarkin, which is situated in a hill overlooking the picturesque village of Freshford in County Kilkenny. On the farm here we have sheep, cattle, and we have a market garden where we grow vegetables for sale in the local market in Freshford.
Oh, you poor thing.
She says there are some instructions.
I love your sweet peas.
They're lovely, a bit of colour around the place.
Oh, yeah.
We're farming here on just a little over 200 acres, and so we went organic with the whole place, sheep, cattle, the crops, and now the vegetables. And it wasn't till sort of, I suppose, spring 2024 when we had a harsh winter on the crops, and I ran into a few health problems with the livestock, and I started to think about organics and think about what I'm doing and farming in general and where agriculture is going in the big picture. And I find myself kind of exploring on the literature end of things, and I found people like Nicole Masters and Gabe Brown, and through them the world of regenerative agriculture was opened up to me. And I was looking at my land and I said, geez, I'm a 30-year-old at the time, and I said, I wasn't happy with my land. I wasn't happy with the level of compaction and the fertility of it, and the life under the soil. Now, it's not terrible, but I'd like it to be better. And I said to myself, I'm going to be here for a long time, and if I'm going to be here for a long time, I need to nurture this and find a way of farming that nurtures it. This plant here is chicory. And I'll dig up a bit of chicory to show you why we plant chicory. So, plant chicory for this thing here. It's a taproot again. So again, its action is to try and break up the compaction, but it's also a nutritious plant for livestock. It's a herb, and it's got anthelmintic properties, and it's actually got a good bit of protein in it as well. So, and there's another plant here. plantain has anthelmintic properties. By anthelmintic properties, I mean it's your medicine cabinet. It reduces it's anti-parasitic, so it helps against the parasites in like the internal parasites like worms and stuff. So then there's loads of clover. Clover is for nitrogen and for protein. Nitrogen for the soil, protein for the livestock, and then there's ryegrass here as well. But I suspect that in kind of 5 or 10 years time there'll be a lot more diversity here, and I aim for a lot more diversity. Right now there's probably 6 or 7 different species. There's grass, there's ryegrass, there's white clover, red clover, plantain, chicory, and there's a couple other plants like these yellow composite flowers and the thistles, and there's some other fescue grasses and stuff like that, but there's very little diversity here really. What we want to see is like 50 or 50 different types of plants here, and all of those be doing different actions in the soil. So, but from a reseeding point of view, it's better than just going in with one monoculture species like ryegrass. Anyway, we'll go on. You start with your soil health and you work upwards, and it's a holistic approach to farming, where you take into account your financials, but also your own social aspect, the environmental impact of everything you do, and you make your decisions on the basis of that rather than, linear thinking about like what's going to make me the most profit. My decisions on the farm here are very much focused on like what's the impact it's going to have on the land, what's the long-term impact, where can I make more money, but how can I connect with my community more, how am I going to enjoy this more, what's going to be better for my family, for my land, for my animals, and try to make all my decisions intertwined. So yeah, that's where we are. We've been practicing our holistic plan grazing here on this field. So this has been grazed twice this year so far. Animals will come in really high stock density. So like there would be sort of in a 50 by 100 meter area, there might have been 700 or 800 sheep and 40 or 45 head of cattle, and they'd spend one day there. And they eat what they eat, and they trample what they trample, and then they move on. And the idea then is that it's stimulating the roots and stimulating the plant, and then the plant gets a nice long rest period. The rest period is varied on the time of the year and the amount of growing that it's going on. But we're going to graze this again now soon. Probably in the next couple of days, and so that's what we're doing with that. But you can see like there's really good cover, there's no bare soil showing, and there's really high density of plant, and that's what we're looking for. So it's absorbing maximum amount of sunlight, solar energy, and converting it into plants. Like that's what we're going for. I'm focusing on trying to breed resilient livestock that are adapted to my land. So the end goal is to have animals that can spend all year out winter. They can lamb outdoors and have as little human intervention as possible in terms of like anthelmintic use or any other sort of medical input. So that's my goal, and it's a long-term goal. So it's a baby step process, but that's the journey I'm on. So what we have here is one of my arable fields, and this field was in winter oats and last year, and again I wasn't happy with the condition of the field afterwards, and so rather than sow a field crop in it this year, which I thought organically was going to be like when you're organic, you have to be robust, and like you can't just expect to get results from the land if it's not in the right state. And I felt like this wasn't robust enough I didn't think that it was going to grow a good crop. So, and that's not what the field needed. So I decided that I would put a cover crop in instead, and try and rebuild the soil. And the idea was that I would graze the cover crop once or twice, but the main action of it would be for the benefit to the soil. And so we sowed a mixture of plants in it. This is a fodder radish. Again, it's for the root. Now that root will get a lot bigger. This is going to stay here for 2 more months, but the idea is that the root will get a bit bigger. But that's again tackling the compaction. We've got an annual clover plant here called Egyptian clover. What clover is a leguminous plant. Leguminous plants are plants that host bacteria which convert atmospheric nitrogen into nitrogen that is available for plants, and they do that in little balls on the roots of the legume plant, and they do it in these things called nitrogen root nodules, and that's the nodule there. See it? So they're just nitrogen fixing nodules. So that's what like clover plants do. Also like beans, peas, and clovers, vetch, birds for trefoil. They're all legume plants. So the plan here is that we might or may not put this into a crop for next winter, depending on the weather. But for the moment, we're going to let it heal the ground. We also have Phacelia. Phacelia is a really great cover crop for a few different reasons, but one of which is that its flower is really, really beautiful, and it's the bees absolutely love it. But it also covers the ground really well. It grows really vigorously, has a nice little root, and it dies off easily. So on a market garden scale, it's very handy that way. We have kale in here. The kale was for the grazing mainly, but again, nice root in it. And there are also some weeds growing in here, which is evident of the condition of the land. But this is red shank, very common weed. It's an annual weed, comes in Ireland, and this is fat hen. So yeah, they're ones that are problematic for spring crops. People growing spring crops, especially organically. We also have some cereals grown. There were cereals in the mix. Oh, there they are. Not very many of them in it, but it's a barley. And yeah, again, diversity. So the more plants, the more diversity, the more diversity it is for the soil life underground and the soil life above ground. So one of my main things on the farm is to encourage as much diversity as I can, and that may result in adding enterprises on the farm to add different animal types, and that's why I run all my animals in a bunch, so you have a diversity of an impact on the ground. You have sheep hoofs, you have big cattle, calves, middle-aged cattle, horses, all that sort of stuff. It's all about diversity. So the cattle are corralled into that area that they're in the rushes, and I'm going to let them back out of there. They'll probably come moseying up this way pretty quick. Animals can be managed to enhance your farm and enhance your life and enhance your land and your biodiversity by producing food that comes from healthy soil where animals have been on and it's been managed right, and the roots are there's plenty of roots and there's diversity. Then when you have diversity in the soil and you have diversity in your plants, and your meat then is healthier, and as a result our gut microbiome has the diversity, and that's where the health comes. So a lot of our health can be boosted and benefited from having a diverse diet of health, like the healthiest food that you can source, and locally as well. If you're eating food that comes from the soil in your locality, the microbes in the soil are going to be like compatible with the microbes in your stomach, and just, I don't know, for me that makes a lot of sense. This is what I'm trying to get, is them to trample the rushes. Mm-hmm. They won't do that because they're grazing along the contour, or they're grazing against the contours with the hill. They'll just prefer the grass up there, because there'll be different stages of a contour where the grasses are sweeter to the animals, and in this context the higher the contour, the grass is sweeter. So that's why I just had them corralled into here to try and get the animal impact on this area. And then for a couple of hours, they were just moved in early this morning, and then they're back up now to For me, animal welfare is again one of my priorities, and so our aim is to keep the stress levels as low as possible on the animals, and like they all stay in the one herd. Our aim, we're planning not to even wean our calves. We're going to leave them on the cows and let the cows calve down with the old calf on and let them naturally wean. And again, the idea with keeping them out over winter is that I've always found when we've had cattle that they were happier when they were out in the winter. Now obviously they need to have a dry place to lie down, they need shelter and they need food, and those are something non-negotiables, and that's what we put into our grazing plan. But for me, I feel like they'll be happier out than they would be standing on concrete. Now in our situation it'd be straw bedded, and that's fine, but I still think when you have them out, you have happier animals, you have less need for things like lice, like treatment for lice, and you also have much reduced costs of like straw bedding, and there's less chance of nitrate leaching from the yard, because the animals are like this, they deposit their nutrients like as much as is here, and then they move on, and that's all the leaching there is. And so when it comes to welfare, it's just like the idea is that it's as natural as possible out all winter in the one bunch, and keeping stress levels as low as possible on them. There's all these see the dung beetles? There's one there. They're all different types, like they hang out at the soil surface. These are all dung beetles there, like there's another one, the big ones. What the dung beetles do is they bring it down. You know, they bring down the dung into the ground, they fertilise it, and they reduce the amount of parasites that are there as well, because they break it down so quick. And they also make it available for the earthworms, and the earthworms take over then, and they bring it down even further, do you know? So very, very important, like. And that's why we want to use less anthelmintics, because if we use more doses, like the more dosing we do, the more they end up, it's like a cascading effect. The more they go into the animals, the more they end up in the dung, and then they actually have an effect on, or the negative effect on the dung beetle population as well. And then as a result, your dungs aren't being broken down. And then if your dungs aren't being broken down, there's another added negative to that, is that like there's a spoilage area around a dung pat that animals won't eat, do you know? So there's that, but there's also like maybe, you know, like this much around that animals won't really eat. And if the dung doesn't get broken down, that like by the next time they come around, then you're losing land. So here we have a dung pat here that's the last time we had stock in here was, I don't know, four weeks ago, and this is what's left from a dung pat. That's just the skin on top, and That's all that's left. Do you smell it? It smells like earth, or even a little bit like mycelium. You can see that there's the roots, there's no dung there, it's all been incorporated into the ground. That's a sign of healthy soil, good dung beetle activity. That's what you want to see. I spend a lot of time here on on the farm on my own, and just spending time on the land, walking it, observing it, and I feel very, very lucky to have that, because it's such a luxury, like, to be able to do that and to say, yeah, that's great, like, that's coming on nicely, or God, that needs to be worked on, or we'll get to that. And it's just like, you just have this space to be creative in. The idea that you're a part of the whole system, and that's what I really love about the farm, is the systematic approach to it, and like how one thing can lead into the next, and how one thing can impact the next, and the idea that something can have a cascading effect on the next, and by moving your animals, you can stimulate the biology, and you can have, you have your dung beetles coming and all of that sort of thing. So and by planting a plant somewhere, then you can encourage the birds in, or you can encourage the pollinators in, and he's good to help herd the sheep. You're going out in the field, you're looking at the animals, you're looking at the dung, you're looking at the weeds that are there, you're looking at the birds and the thing. It's like, it gives you something. You see how all things are intertwined, but it gives you and it's a real buzz when you do see the dung beetles there. You're like, okay, great, that's healthy. There's a sign of health there in the ground. This is like a prime shit now. That's exactly what we're looking for. It's almost a bit on the dry side.